morning. I'm really happy to be here and to have to speak about social innovation as well. It is the Basque region has been really sort of showing us the way in many ways, and social innovation is really a sort of upgrowing market, I would say. No, it's an upgrowing issue in the European agenda. Empowering people, driving change. This is the title of a report that we wrote in 2010. And I want to give you a little bit of the context and concepts. And my colleagues here will sort of be much more specific in what we're doing, particularly in structural policies. First of all, where I come from, I mean, in the European Commission, we've got what we call a sort of think tank sometimes, the Bureau of European Policy Advisors. We're there to sort of provide the President of the European Commission in particular, but the College of Commission in general, with strategic thinking and policy advice to help shape policy options and in the medium and long term. We sort of operate under the instructions of the President, and so this is President Barroso, and in 2009, he asked us to sort of organize a workshop with a number of stakeholders on this new concept, which he did not really understand very well, social innovation. He did not really understand very well, but he really understood the sort of what the sort of main function of it was. It's not at the end of the workshop. He said it's not a panacea. I understood. But we've got to encourage it and value it, because not only it can bring immediate solutions to pressing social problems, and we were at the beginning of the crisis in 2009, but in the long term, and this is where I think there's something which is extremely sort of important forward-looking. I see social innovation as part of a new culture of empowerment that we're trying to promote. But, I mean, he was still asking, what is social innovation, right? And a lot of people were sort of asking him and asking us, but what is it exactly, okay? And at that stage, we cooperated with the Basque government, and particularly with Denok and Innobasque, etc., to actually sort of present him a concrete example. A lot of you will recognize here the small car Herico, which was really conceived as a social innovation project right from the beginning, and which is being developed as a social innovation, which means creating value for and with people. Social innovation is an innovation that is social in its means and in its ends. The President was really very happy to have been able to touch social innovation with the Herico car, and so we went on and sort of gave some definitions. We thought, when we sort of tried to look at the issue, that, I mean, we had to categorize, not to sort of encapsulate, but I mean just to sort of categorize what the different types of social innovations were. You've got sort of little local projects of sort of creating a kindergarten, or sort of helping a group of children with their homework, things like that, which can be social innovation, which can sort of really very sort of precisely answer social demands. But you've got as well these social innovations like putting bikes in towns, or sort of, organizing the garbage in different recycling packages, this sort of things, which are really more answering social demands. So the second approach is to answer societal challenges, and there the boundaries between the economic and social is starting to blur. But the social innovations are really directed to society as a whole. I mean, to the social group most in demand, we sort of retain the approach one, but we're sort of looking at society as a whole. Approach 3 is what is sort of being engaged by the sort of cooperation between public authorities, between the industrial world, between the financial world, between NGOs and social actors. And this is the need to reform society in the direction of a more participative arena where empowerment and learning are sources of outcome and well-being. This has got to be driven by the empowerment of actors on the one side, but driven by public services. You'll know that the modernization of public services, to use a euphemism, is one of the big issues in the whole sort of European recovery program which is going on, including the annual growth survey and the European semester and the national reform programs, which are sort of given member state by member state. The modernization of public services is really something which is not going to go on but just by cutting budgets, right? It will sort of work only if you've got people who are empowered at the bottom, civil servants just as much as sort of economic and social actors, and which are sort of relayed by the action of public services. So the question was then in 2009, why should we address social innovation at EU level? I mean, isn't it sort of much better done at local or national level? But really there was a European issue there, not only to address the short and long-term social demands which were growing, but to find new, innovative and imaginative responses in terms of budget constraints. As well, we found that social challenges are very often opportunities. Why are they opportunities? Because it sort of applied to new growth sectors. We can quote we can sort of say health, for instance, which is coming up to sort of 5 to 6% of GNP, is really a sector where there are at the same time a lot of sort of public money which is invested, but as well a lot of sort of private opportunities which can grow. It is as well an engine for the Europe 2020 strategy for smart, green, and inclusive growth. It really makes the connection between the dots of smart, green, inclusive. What are the main barriers and challenges? It's not to you, which I'm going to sort of tell you. I mean, the presenter before me was really mentioning this idea of measuring that we need. Why do we need sort of to have a measure of what social innovation yields? Is because there's still the need to prove to investors, to prove to sort of even little savers who are going to sort of be happier to sort of invest in something which has not maybe a sort of big financial return, but which has got an important social return. We've got to make sure that this social return is known and is valued, right? So the financing and the scaling up is a big issue that we are sort of tackling in many ways. The question of the governance and coordination. I mean, the people who are sort of governing, starting with public authorities, have got to sort of change their ways themselves. And this question of empowering people is not something which was classical, which was sort of understood as a mainstream issue. So people have got to sort of change their ways and means. How do we sort of organize public authorities which are more sort of animating the debate and sort of producing incitations rather than sort of governing in the sort of sense of yesterday? Legal and cultural recognition is extremely important as well. I mean, this conference is an important sort of testimony of the fact that we've got not only to sort of know what we're talking about and know that we're talking about the same thing, but as well, we've got to put together a large number of, a large variety of actors to sort of, will not use to work together. And this is extremely important to sort of recognize social innovation as an important sort of contribution to economy and the social cohesion. Skills and training. We do not have sort of masters of social innovation. We do have sort of a lot of business schools who are starting to get interested in the issue. But I mean, this is a field where at European level, there's still a long way to go still. And data and measurement, which is sort of connecting with the financing in particular, is something which we are working on. So to cut it short, how does we sort of support social innovation at European level? You will have the presentations of Michael and Lisbeth, who will sort of concentrate very much on what we're doing, not only in the cohesion funds, not only in the regional fund, but as well in the social fund. But the general framework in which we're working is Europe 2020, the Europe 2020 strategy, which has been decided for the next 10 years, and which has got 7 flagship initiatives, but in particular, the Platform for Social Exclusion and Poverty and Innovation Union are the 2 sort of flagship initiatives in which there are very specific sort of provisions for social innovation. At the level below, we've got programs and supporting schemes, and I sort of will stop a minute on the Single Market Act, which was really interesting, is that when we decided to sort of have a relaunch of the Single Market Act that was 3 years ago, there was, the Commission Barnier was in charge, sort of launched a consultation on a number of issues that were on the table, and sort of ask what are the priority issues to sort of be sort of to be pushed. There were things like the European patent. There were things like a number of issues which were more in the economic field, and then there was social enterprise and social innovation. And there was a popular demand in that consultation for social innovation, which had just been added because some people inside the Commission had insisted, but I mean, the high-level authorities were not totally convinced. And then there was this popular demand, which means that from there started a really big sort of plan, an action plan, and there was a social business initiative that was agreed and passed in 2011, which really has got a full action plan to sort of look at social business, social enterprises, and see how at European level we can really sort of help promote social business. Obviously, this is not enough. We've got research as well, a large research program on social innovation. And of course, we've got the regional policy, which is actually sort of not only providing fund, but putting social innovation at the forefront. Post-2014, I'm really happy that the budget, even if it's a reduced budget like we all have, has been agreed yesterday. Then we can probably more sort of get into the grips of the programs that have been approved to implement that budget. Horizon 2020 is the research budget. The Program for Social Change of Innovation is a small social program where there is a lot of stress on social innovation. The European Social Fund and cohesion policy in general, which you'll hear more about. What are the initiatives and instruments at the lower level? Social Innovation in Europe, the Social Business Initiative, a microcredit facility as well, a social innovation prize. It's important as well to sort of stimulate competition and stimulate what are the best results. A network of hubs as well, of social innovation hubs, because it's important to put people together to make sure that you've got places where they can sort of connect. Regio Stars, which is an instrument which, for the first time this year, had social innovation as one of its strand. The European Social Fund for Financing, which is done with the EIB, and public procurement as well, where innovation in general is now sort of favored. Thank you very much for your attention. Muchas gracias, Escari Katso.